Hello there, welcome. Today I'm going to do a variety of cover a variety of films, including a top 10 of 80s reprehensible movies. So I've got quite a few things lined up. I'm going to start off with the popular thing of the day, which is Barbenheimer. Which Barbenheimer, for anyone watching this, in years to come, is a phenomenon where Barbie and Oppenheimer opened the same day and were such opposite films. Barbie's a big kind of comedy, silly film. At least that's how it was publicised. And Oppenheimer's is a big, serious Christopher Nolan film that was publicised as the kind of Oscar contender of the summer. So these two completely different films were put together in the same weekend. And a meme started called Barbenheimer, which was go see both, which really was like these films are so opposite, but they're both made by kind of directors who are not conventional. They were kind of they're just very different from each other, and people were kind of want to go back to the movies after what has been a summer of very traditional films that have failed completely. Like Indiana Jones 5 failed completely. Other films have disappointed financially. But there's been a lot, apart from like Guardians of the Galaxy, most films have underperformed. It's like there's a sense of people are sick of what's been popular for a while. People want to move on to something different now. There's something in the air that we want something different. Whether that'll continue beyond this year, who knows? Maybe it's just the films themselves. It's a kind of a shame because the films this year haven't been actually that bad. It's just that they were kind of they've come after about a year of mainly kind of mediocre films. You've had some real turkeys like Wakanda Forever. You know, a lot of Marvel films have underperformed apart from Guardians. You've had a lot of kind of some of the DC films like Shazam, you know, or Black Adam have been fairly predictable. So it's been like a sort of a lot of films, superhero films, epic big films that have not really worked. Even though films like Guardians, Avatar 2, things like that have delivered. It's just it's just that some of them haven't. Some of them have just failed to really catch on. So this seems to be like the response to that is Barbenheimer, which is like the idea of going to see these films that look a bit different from normal. So that's what the Barbenheimer moniker is, you know. So it's it's kind of interesting to see like a grassroots level. I mean, people are just going to see both of them just for the fun of it. And it's good because actually these are both these films are worth seeing. For different reasons. They are very different films, but one is kind of a more light film and one's a much more darker film. But you could actually watch them double bill quite easily. But I mean, probably the best start with Oppenheimer and then go to Barbie. I mean, I wouldn't follow the Barbenheimer for the direction of what film to see first because I think Oppenheimer's probably the one you want to catch first. It's a longer film, it's a serious film, and after that, you probably would want to see something like Barbie just to relax through. And but I'm not saying I'm not saying Barbie's lightweight. It's got some ideas. It's got some things that wants it's got in his mind, but it's not as heavy as Oppenheimer. I'll start with Barbie because it's the first one on the Barbenheimer thing. So Barbie has did well critically. It's done, I mean, tremendously well, like box office wise. Both it and Oppenheimer both done really well. Both of them exceeded expectations by a long shot. And they're pretty much Barbie from Warner Bros. Who just had the Flash, which had dropped dead, and this film, which cost a lot less, has made a fortune. So it's probably covered the losses in the Flash quite easily. Um, and it's it's just delivered something that people wanted. It can deliver a women's film for a mass audience, which you haven't had for a while. Normally, when you try and do that, they're doing it with like Captain Marvel, which felt very, manufactured. You know, didn't really you never quite saw what the appeal of that film was to the mass audience. I mean, the last one probably was Wonder Woman because the people really liked Wonder Woman because there's a female lead everyone seemed to enjoy. And there's been like films for women throughout. Some have done well, but a lot of time it's been the older women, older actresses in films. But there hasn't been that many, like, there hasn't been a big breakout film for women for a long time. And to be a big breakout film for women, you can also have to do something so you can get the men to go and see it too, or not mind coming to go see it. Is the big thing is they don't mind like going along, and this film does that. There has been criticisms by certain people who seem to be willing to misunderstand it completely just to make their point, which is it's anti-men. It's not anti-men. It's anti take a side. That's what it is. It's taking mickey out of anyone who goes about extreme man, takes sides, and the whole idea of it is it's looking at this doll as Barbie. And the idea is what the dolls actually had an interior life, which has been available as an idea since Toy Story. I mean, Toy Story was when it broke through with this idea, and it's been going on since then. But you've had stuff in the past, like in Britain, with that same idea. It's just like Toy Story was first in America to do it and make it hit worldwide. But it's something that always comes back as a genre idea. So they're taking an idea that's been around for a long time and they're playing it up as what if this happened and let's make a metaphor for what girls like as they mature. And the idea is it's about a girl's maturing through the Barbie character. And it's how do you react to the world that you think is a certain way and it's really not? How do you deal with sexism? How do you deal with the demands of men, basically, whether it be sexist demands or their ways of trying to connect with you in a way that maybe is not what you're looking for? And it's about like tribalism, like how people jump into tribalism out of fear. And there's lots of things like that come through the film. And unfortunately, because of that's a theme of the tribalism, the people have taken it as an example of tribalism of, oh, they hate like half the population, all the men. It's like you don't really get that in the film. Like, most of the characters in this film are idiots, men and women. They're all flawed as hell throughout. So I don't get why people are saying, "Oh, he hates men," because the women just get treated just as badly. And that's the joke. Is the idea is everybody's flawed and everybody's a lot to learn. And the whole idea is the Barbie story is of this doll actually having to learn to exist in the world and trying to figure out, what it takes to be a grown-up person. So it starts out as she's like a pampered doll life, everything goes her way. She's the kind of Margot Robbie, she's the original Barbie, she's the traditional one. Everyone knows who this is. This is the one. There's so many Barbies, different races all around. But she's the original blonde-haired Barbie. And she has pampered. Everything goes her way. She's graceful. Everything works for her. And now she's getting thoughts of death, which goes against everything of Barbie. Barbie's meant to be a positive role model. Barbie's meant to be this. She's meant to be like look great. She's meant to be perfect in every possible way. And the whole point of the film is no one's perfect. Like, nobody can achieve that. It's just a delusion that is a happy delusion, but it does lead to stuff like tribalism and an ideal of the world that isn't very sustainable. Which is one of the jokes of the film, but some people don't get it. So the thing is, she has to she's had thoughts of death. She's wondering what's causing it, and there has been examples in the past of the Mattel toys coming out of this land, this magical land, into the real world, and so Barbie, in fear of becoming this, fear of her own thoughts, decides to go and see what's actually outside in the world. of course, she's joined by Ken, who is played by Ryan Gosling, who, in the probably the funniest performance of the film, is this insecure character who is in love with Barbie, doesn't know why. He just has the feelings for that, and he's insecure about his place anywhere because Kens are basically the add-ons to the Barbie world. They don't really, no one knows where they live, no one knows what they do. They're just there, and they don't seem to exist until Barbie pays attention to them. And so they've got a vacuum in their soul they don't know how to fill, which of course is a metaphor for how girls see younger men because they're there, then who knows where they are and who knows what they actually want, you know. So Ken goes with Barbie, and both of them get shot by the real world. Barbie starts to see that she's trying to find out what's causing these thoughts that she never had before, and Ken's just trying to realize how useless he is, and he learns patriarchy. Now, this is where the film kind of loses some people because people think it's a full-on attack when it's actually just taking the piss over the whole ideal world thing rather than just one thing. It does point out, yeah, there's lots of the Mattel was run by men. The Barbie is a fantasy created for little girls, but it's creating it for girls who want this fantasy because young girls like dolls who are fashionable. Girls like fashion. It's just being aware of who you're selling something to. But Barbie thinks that the tale's run by women, and it's not. She's shocked to find out that men created a lot of the stuff that is important to her. But the more you find out, these guys are actually like they're really into the Barbie idea. They're trying to do their best. They're just not very good at it, but they're trying. And the problem really is the second half is when they go back to the real world where Barbie's found the person who put those thoughts in her head, who's the mother of this girl who owned the Barbie that she is, and the mother's starting to have like a midlife crisis. She's got a family, but she doesn't like where her life's going, and she's having the dark thoughts. And the daughter's fed up with the Barbies because she sees them as perfect things, and people aren't perfect. And that's what the Barbie land to do, rediscover their roots, and the middle-aged woman has to kind of figure herself out, and the daughter has to try and be less of a teen and actually be more of a person again. And that's the whole point. And in the second half, they have to fight against these other Kens who have created this patriarchy around what they're doing, and they're going too far, and they don't quite understand it. They're just working out their own insecurities because they don't know who they are for the Barbies, which is a typical teenage boy trying to deal with girls, and they don't want to show their feelings, so they're acting like pains most of the time, and have to get put in a place, which is this. The end of the film is them getting put in a place, and basically both sides realizing they have to kind of grow up a little bit. That's the whole movie, is learn to grow up a little bit. There's a joke at the end where the Kens want a seat in the legislature in the Barbie world, and maybe you just get one little thing. That's it. The joke is the Barbie world still, because it's a girly thing, and the girls have the fantasies of being in charge of all this world, just as the males have fantasies of being in charge of the real world. It's more complicated than that, but it's just this idea of this moving this fantasy world onwards to something that's more logical and helpful for the person as I grew up a little bit. So it's the idea is the whole movie is about maturing, and they take the Barbie idea as being a metaphor for a girl learn how to deal with boys and learn to deal with the craziness of boys and their habits and her own views of herself and her own views of her own perfection, and learn to deal with the idea of death and you're not perfect. And so it's a very good film. It's very enjoyable. The performances are fun. Some of the stuff's a little bit obvious, but it's good natured and it deserves to do well. So, and it's a good film for girls and women. Just it's an enjoyable film. Oppenheimer is very different. Oppenheimer is the tale of Robert Oppenheimer. he who created the bomb, you know, the atomic bomb, as opposed to the hydrogen bomb, which came later. But he's the one that split the atom and created the great weapon they could use in the Japanese to end the war. But the film is about the creation of that, the creation of what kind of person would actually have the intelligence to do it, who could have the organizational skill to do it, and who could bring everything together to make the bomb. And in this period, what you have is a lot of the intellectuals who can do this are Jewish leftists, ex-communists, people who aren't completely in on some of the American ideals, but a lot of them aren't opposed to America either. They live there. They might have more socialist values, but they're not actually like anti-socialism. They've got or anti-capitalism. There's a variation of people that like there is in life, but a lot of the people who they have to use to make the bomb are people who maybe the main leaders in government won't agree with. People who want to look at the social reactions, the moral implications of the bomb, and while someone like Truman, who is the one who drops the bomb, doesn't care about that stuff. He just wants a weapon that can win. So you have like a look at Oppenheimer, but you also have a look at two clashing ideologies within America at the time when the bomb is created. And how do they clash during the making of the bomb and following that bomb, as the Oppenheimer who made it has different points of view from the people who are now using it for other means. And it's about the difficulty of your own, what you create maybe is going to be used the way you weren't that comfortable with. And also the sense of Oppenheimer was driven to this. He had a feeling of what this could be. He's been viewed as communist by some people, but he actually had gone against communism fairly early as not the right answer. He wasn't fully on board with some of the American ideals, but he was actually patriotic to his country. He could be critical of it. And there's lots of people like him in there, and there's a variety of viewpoints. Some were right-leaning, some were left-leaning, but it was like a very uncomfortable thing where they needed these scientists to do it, but they weren't comfortable with some of the political views, and they had some security measures they had to keep up because they knew that after the war, Russia was going to be the enemy. So it made for tense interactions throughout and tense interactions afterwards. Because Oppenheimer both had to build a bomb, then live with the consequences of what it was and what it meant to people, and the controversy of should we have bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because that's on him in some ways. Like, he has guilt over that, but it's more complicated. It's not really like if he'd tons of guilt, he wouldn't have built the bomb, but he felt the bomb was needed because he did defeat the Nazis. But then when that wasn't the case, he still understood the pro-military uses of it, but he also understood the anti-military uses of it. And there are different opinions about the bomb from other people. So he understood it was a complex thing in a time that complexity wasn't really, respected by the people funding him. So it becomes a schism of his soul from the part of his personality that can work with the very militaristic American system, and the part of his soul that really finds a lot of fault in it. And it's about him trying to deal with that, trying to deal with his own guilt over what he's created, because he realizes this has changed the world, and it was very important. But it's also him just trying to find a viewpoint on it that's solid, because you get a sense of it in the film that he has lots of theories, but he can't step back because he was so into the making of this thing. He can't really step back and coherently look at it. He can have lots of points of views of this and that, but in some ways he's too close to it to actually be able to give an overview, but he could offer lots of points of view about it. But it was not like I don't think he was probably wasn't the best person to ask about how to use the military wise and things like that. He was not. He was a scientist. He wasn't a military guy. And when they went into the 50s, he was much more unsure of himself. And the second half of the film about him losing his security clearance and being viewed as a communist sympathizer, even though he really wasn't. He had things that interested him, like supporting the rebels in Spanish Civil War because they were fighting for their rights. It wasn't really about communism, but just the communists were the only people you could put the money through to get to them. And it became this thing of what's actually communism, what's actually something else. So he had that complexity to deal with all the time, and he had to try and figure it out and find a way through it. So that's the film, really. Is the idea it's going back because Christopher Nolan goes back and forward in time, dealing with him in the 50s, then during the building the bomb, and then going back to the 50s, and he's facing off against Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss, who is kind of his enemy in the film, but he's an enemy who keeps smiling and tries to say, I'm the civilized one, I'm the respectable, normal one. And he's someone who will stab in the back rather than the front. And he also has been dealing with all the scientists and all the mistakes he makes with different people, like Edward Taylor, with different people he works with, trying to deal with all of their issues. Also, just having the fun of building the bomb, just watching that bomb come together. But him and Matt Damon as the two characters who were. Matt Damon plays Leslie, I guess, Glouse or something. I can't remember this surname. He's like the general in charge of the building the bomb, and he's the one who's has to protect Oppenheimer from himself. Sometimes Oppenheimer sometimes be a bit vague and not think security measures through. So that, and you've got Oppenheimer's dealing with women, which can be a bit problematic because he's a bit of a womanizer. He's a wife who's drunk all the time. He's got lots of problems, lots of issues, and nothing can cohere into one thing because he's trying to deal with everything. And the film is really about how people are more complicated than something than simplistic focus we put on them. So it's trying to show the complexity of the character rather than try to offer an answer. So it's a really good movie. I think it's one of Chris Nolan's best movies. I really enjoyed it. There's some very nice sequences, especially making the bomb. That's what everyone talks about because it's the highlight of the film. But a lot of the other sequences, I love the stuff about like 50s communism in America and all that stuff. I love all that stuff. I'm fascinated by it. So I was really into that. Performances are terrific. The atmosphere is terrific. The score is a bit overbearing at times because it goes all the way through, but it's still a very good film. I don't want to say any more about it now because in case I go watch it. But both these films are worth seeing. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back soon with some more. Okay, bye for now.